Hooper the ability to share her screen?
I I think I can do it on my own. Let me see. Are you saying that I should start, Brother Buckland?
Hold on, let me just see. Let me just see something.
Everyone can share, sir. We all can
Everyone,
share our screen.
everyone can share. Okay. Yes, Sister Hooper, we will begin with you. You can begin to share your screen and
Okay.
to present to us on your personal or some of your personal experiences with God.
Okay. Is everybody hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. We're hearing.
Okay. Yes. Good morning once again, everyone. I'll start my presentation. This is me. Okay. So my memorable experiences with God. One of my most memorable experiences with God was when I was about 16 years old. At that time, I was still in secondary school, and I had lots of friends. So a friend of mine invited me to a party. And because at that time, and as for as long as I can remember, I was striving to live a godly life and therefore not interested in parties of such. And then too, I really did not trust going to the party that my friend invited me to, since her upbringing, from my knowledge, was, you know, less to be desired. And so I had no idea what sort of people would be there and so forth and so on. However, I told my friend that I would attend because I didn't want her to look down on me. You know, at that times you want to you're trying to make your understand who you are and so on. So you want to keep your friends. Anyways, the days before the parties was to be, I started praying to God, earnestly every day. And I was asking God, please, please, God, can you show me a way that I could not go to this party? And I had this confidence in God. And I can tell you, at that time I was a very staunch member of the Anglican Church, of which my entire family were members. And so I prayed to God. It so happened that the day of the party, I suddenly I woke up not feeling well. I had a very high fever, and of course my mom had to attend to me and so on. And so of course I couldn't go out with having a fever and so on. So there was my reason for not going to the party. And so I thank God, because I knew that He was the one, for whatever reason, intervened, so that I could not have gone to that party. But even more so, when I would have relayed to my friend that my reason for not going, she actually came to visit me. I think she probably knew somewhere in her mind that maybe I may not want to go to her party. So after she heard that I was sick, she came to visit me, and of course she found me not feeling well, right? So and I, throughout my life, I always thank God, and that's the thing that really increased my faith in God, because I prayed to God, and God answered my prayer. The next memorable experience that I had came a couple of years later, and that was when I was actually a member of the church, because I became a member of the Church of Christ, I think about um, a year after that experience that I had. And so I, of course, became very faithful in the church from the onset. and I always attended all the youth camp and so on. So it so happened this year at youth camp, I couldn't go the day when all of the campers were going. I think I had I don't know, some sort of class to attend, and I couldn't. I think I had tests or something like that, so I couldn't miss that. So the day when the campers were going, I could not. And I did indicate to them that I would go the day after, and you know, I just plunged into that without thinking or anything. And so, because I did not want to miss going to camp and miss the opportunities of all the fun and the learning and so on, I said I'm going to go on my own. And so I collected the instructions from whomever at that time. And so, you know, I always prided myself on being a very outspoken person, a brave person, and so on. And so I began my journey. And, you know, when, because the I went with public transportation, and then that only went a certain way. But to get into the camp, it was, you know, it was a narrow track and whatever. All right. So I started the journey alone with God through a sandy bush enclosed trail. You know, I started out very confidently, you know, walking through. And because in my mind, you know, we have been going to that camp for years, because we'd always go through with a truck, and the truck, you know, it was so close that all the bushes would be scraping along the sides of the truck whilst we were going through. And so I thought that, you know, maybe I should stop. I should turn back or something. But, you know, I said, I'm already here and they're expecting me. I'm going to continue. And so I built up some courage and I continued walking. Of course, I prayed to God, you know, for guidance and protection and so on. And I think that, you know, my faith and my trust and belief in God, you know, propelled me towards going through this lonely track. And so, of course, I began my journey. Even though I prayed, I was still scared. I was sweating. I was still fearful. I kept looking over my shoulders. I kept looking around. I kept thinking that, you know, a tiger, because the area was known for having wild animals, you know. And so I thought maybe, you know, because the Amerindians, they lived a lot in that area too. So I thought that maybe I would see Amerindian men with bows and arrows and weapons or some sort. You know, my imagination, I tell you, it was active going through. And I tremble. I think I almost probably urinated myself with the fear that I had. Anyway, as I continued to walk about 3/4 of the way, I tell you, as I'm talking here, I'm reliving every moment of it. I saw a man appeared out of the bushes, and he had a stick in his hand. It's as if he was looking for maybe you know, a wild animal or I don't know. And so when I saw him, I don't know, I think my mind froze. I froze, but I was still sort of moving, right? And then I remembered God. I trusted in God, and I built up some courage, and I continued to walk towards, because he was crossing the path. And so I smiled at him and I said, with all the bravery I could muster, I said, "Good morning. How far is it to the camp?" And I think he looked at me directly. I don't know. He was probably thinking, who is this and what is she doing here? Because I guess he knew the camp was on, you know, because I assumed he was someone who lived in the area and was very aware that camping was going on. And so then after he looked at me, and I think he was trying to, you know, he I don't know, he was probably wondering whatever he was wondering. And he said, continue walking straight ahead. And then he said to turn on your left and then turn to your right. And as you continue, you will hear the noise coming from the camp, right? And I said, thank you to him. and he just went into the bush somewhere. But of course, I continued walking, and I still continue looking over my shoulders, and after he got lost in the bush, and I remembered his direction. I started running, and I was sweating and I was falling over because I didn't know if this man could have come out from the bush in another direction and attacked me or something. And I started running, and just as I, with all the fear and everything building up in me, I heard the voices coming from the camp, you know, and my fear, lessened a bit. And then as I continued running, I saw the camp gate. And when I saw this camp gate, I stopped and I didn't move for a long time. And because, the reason I didn't move because I didn't want the campers to see me, in fear and trembling and so on. So I waited there to build up my courage and to get rid of my fear. And then I finally went into the camp. And of course, when you're at the camp gate, when I walked up, everybody, who was playing about or whatever, they saw me. And everyone, when I told everyone that I walked all that way by myself, everyone was shocked. The director came, his name was Brother Eustace, and he came and I don't know, he held on to me, and I don't know if it was a form of encouragement or he was probably glad that I made it there safely or what. And I after that experience, when of course I continued, I had a great time of the camp. I do all the things that I had to do because I was a person who was always, put in charge of classes and so on. So I did all of my thing, right? But do you know that I had never ever spoken about that experience? I didn't even tell my family. I didn't even tell my friends at church, I didn't say anything to anybody. It's until years later, you know, when I would be in groups talking to young people at youth rallies or whatever, I would talk to them about my experiences, my fear and everything. And I think I always thank God for taking me safely through that experience. And that was another experience that helped to really build my faith and trust and courage in God, that when I called on Him, that He always answered my prayers, and He still continues to do so in various ways. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sister Hooper. That was quite interesting. Now, that forested, bushy area that you were walking through, was that part of the Amazon jungle?
No, that was inside of, that wasn't at the border. That was in our country itself.
Okay.
Yes, that wasn't to the border.
And you said that there are wild animals. Did you mention tigers?
Yes, because where the camp is, I think several miles that would be to the west of that, there is another camp. And there are many instances where the campers, whilst they were in the camp, they saw tigers and so on roaming. And at this particular camp, because the Church of Christ, we would have always, take our camping at that particular camp. And we would have gone to the other one a few times, but most were at this one that I had the experience at. And sometimes we would hear the roarings and so on of wild animals, but we have never really, and the persons who were in charge of the camp, because they live there, they would talk about instances of encounters that they would have of whatever. But as campers, we would have never, all through the years, experienced any, encounters with them, because the camp, there was a creek close by, and the camp was sort of in a a ravine, sort of, if I can say that. So I don't know, but the area is noted for wild animals. Yes.
Okay, that's quite interesting
Yeah.
because
It, it was
in
it was
in
terrible. It
in
was a very
in
terrible experience, I can tell you.
in my country we don't have tigers and lions except in the zoo.
Yeah, we
We
have
don't have them roaming
tigers
about.
and leopards and whatever we have here. You know,
Yeah,
sometimes you would see persons when they capture them. You
yeah,
know, you would see them playing them and so on. Yep.
yes. That was quite an interesting presentation, Sister Hooper.
Thank you.
And I can sum it up in a sentence
Hmm.
that you have experienced God on different occasions when He answered your prayers.
Hmm.
He He made you get sick so that you would have an excuse not to go to a party, and He
Hmm.
gave you the courage to face the strange man in this bushy area,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Mm.
also you were putting yourself in danger because there might have been a tiger that could
Hmm.
have attacked you, but he
Hmm.
protected you and
Yes.
brought you safely to the camp.
Mhm.
So thanks very much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
And sometime today, I would like you to send that lovely PowerPoint that you showed us so I can
Okay.
have a record of it
Sure.
in my laptop here.
Sure.
Now I'm going to be asking Brother Solin to share his screen and to let us hear about his personal experiences with God.
All right, Brother Buckland.
Yes,
Just give me a minute, please.
yes.
Already shared. I'm I've shared the screen, but even if
Yes.
I put it in the diaporama form or format, it is still not showing on the screen. I'm not sure if you can see what I've written. Well,
Okay. Well, you can still go ahead.
okay, so no problem.
Okay. Yes.
Then I think I've sent it to you already via
Yes.
email.
You have.
All right, sir.
Did you want me to share my screen and put your PowerPoint up?
It's not a problem. I can go ahead. I just wanted to make sure that like you can see it and Sister Hooper could see it as well as Brother Israel. But it is not sharing. Well,
Yeah.
it's share on the screen, but it can't appear in full screen.
All right. Let me share the screen, and I will share the screen, and you can tell me when to move on from one slide to the other.
All right, right, sir. Right, that's right.
All right. You cannot start screen while the other participant is sharing. All right. So what I would need you to do is to stop your sharing, which will allow me to share. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Brother Buckler.
I don't have it. Oh, I don't have it yet. Where is it?
I'm seeing it on the screen.
You're seeing it. Okay.
Yes,
Good. Good.
yes, sir. All right. Good morning to everyone. At this moment, I'd like to share with you some of the experiences that I had with God in my life. Now, as you can see on the screen there, the first experience that I have mentioned in this PowerPoint was that on December 25th, 2018, after I have had a meeting with the committee of the youth of the congregation where I came from in Haiti. Now the vice president of the committee have asked me to give him a ride home on my bike. And at that time, it was already 7 p.m. So it was dark. Now I called my brother who was with me at that time. So he was the secretary of the committee. And I let him know that the vice president have asked us to give him a ride home. So we are going to drop him home first. Then after we will go back to our respective place or to our house. Now, as we were going to drop him home, and as we were crossing on the main road, a man who was on a bike, he was like, riding with his right hand, with only one hand, and in his left hand, he was supporting a Bluetooth speaker on his shoulder. And this man that I'm talking about here seemed to be drunk. He ran onto us with his bike, and he hurt badly my left foot. So as we dropped on the ground, certain part of my bike was destroyed and stuff. So as we get up, I was in so much pain that I could not even, feel my feet. I could not put it on the ground, and it was already swollen. Now, the next day, as I could not, support with the pain that I was having, so my parents decided to take me to the hospital. When I reached there, during the time I was waiting on the doctor to look at my foot, they bring in 4 other persons that have had a bike accident. So they were traveling, the 4 of them were traveling on the same bike, and a car ran into them. And all of them had their left foot completely destroyed, completely broken. I was able to look at all their bones, literally, out of their flesh, very broken, and blood was running out. This is the first time in my life that I've seen something like this. It was so horrible. And my mother could not even stay in the room. She was crying, and she left the room. She left me in the room and, go and take some air, some breath out of the room that we were. Now, on the next day, after the doctor looked at my feet and said, even though it was swollen and stuff, he said, I'm okay. He just gave me some medication for the pain, so I could get, sometimes without having any pain. Now, on the next day, there was a person in my neighborhood. He was basically living in front of my house. He was doing like taxi bikes. He had a bike and he was doing taxi. And one day, the next day, after my situation, after what I would have seen in the hospital, he had an accident that was basically just like the one that I had. As he was crossing the road, another bike ran into him, and his feet was broken just like those I would have seen in the hospital. His toe was broken and stuff. The boots were tear. The left foot, the boot was tear out, and his toe was broken and stuff. Now, as his son was explaining this to me, I was asking myself then, how would it happen that my foot was not broken just as their foot would have been broken? Because the thing is, they were wearing shoes, they were wearing boots, and me, I was not even wearing these type of things. I just had in my foot a sandals or a slipper. So my case would have been much more worse than their case. But however, this did not happen to me. So I believe that it was because usually as I'm going on the road, I take my time to pray God that He will able me to, travel safely, to go out safely and come back safely. And I believe that God has protected me not to have my feet broken just as they would have had their feet broken. Now let's move on to the next one. Now the second one, I don't remember well. The second experience that I've written down in this PowerPoint, I don't really remember exactly when, but in between 2016 and 2018, I used to go every Saturday to the school that I was going. In secondary school. So I used to have meetings with my classmates in order to review the lessons that we would have been taught during the class week. Now, I don't like being late in anything at all. And I always try my best to be on time as much as possible. Then one Saturday, as I was preparing myself, I don't remember what exactly happened, but for some reason, I was late. I have left my house a few minutes after the time I usually get out to go and meet with my classmates. Then on my way, because I'm late, I was angry with myself. I was complaining and murmuring because I didn't want to be late. As I reached outside on the main road from afar off, I saw a crowd of people in the exact spot where I usually wait on taxis. And as I'm approaching more and more, I was hearing people talking about an accident. Then when I reached to the place, that is the exact same spot where I normally stand to wait on taxis, I saw a crashed truck. That is, a truck that was, damaged, that was broken. And I saw also a motorcycle, a bike. And as I asked one of the person that was there what happened, he reported to me that the truck that I saw had loose brake, so it could not stop itself. It loses brake and it ran on the sidewalk and hurt two persons along with the bike's owner. Now the victims were severely injured, for I saw a lot of blood on the ground. And amid what I heard that day, people were wondering if this person will be able to make it alive to the hospital. So at that moment now, I start, I forgot if I was hungry about myself for being late. I didn't even think about, hasting to reach to meet my classmate no more. But rather, I stood there and I was thinking within myself. I was giving thanks to God within my heart. For I believe that He had used His own way to spare my life from this great danger. If I were on time as I used to be, I would have been certainly among those that were hit by the truck or that were victims of this accident. Now, the third one. In November 2016, I have posted my candidature to be president. I have chosen to to go to participate in a course of election to be the president of the youth in the congregation that I talked about a few minutes earlier. So I did that because I was encouraged by a few members of the congregation. But even though I was encouraged by them, I was a bit skeptical. I didn't really want to. They were encouraging me, so I didn't want to, I didn't want, to make them feel bad because they were giving me advice and they were encouraging me to do it, and that I would not do it. So I said, all right, I'm going. But as I've said, I was a bit skeptical. I didn't really believe that I would win the election. You know why? Because I just moved to that congregation very recently. So I was not really familiar with the members. I had just about 5 years, and because I was a bit timid at that time, so I didn't really make relations. I didn't really speak to people. Since I come to worship, when worship finished, I just go back to my house, not really talking to anybody. However, the leader of the next party was well known in the congregation. He was there since childhood, and he was working. He had financial capacity because I saw him, printing out flyers, handing out to people, and putting posters on the wall, which I could not do. So I was stressed out. And also, he had relations. He was talking almost to everybody in the congregation to support him, which I could not do either, for I was not so familiar, as I've said, with them. Nevertheless, afterwards, I said to myself, I don't have to worry, for I believe in God, and if it is His plan, nothing or no one can stop me from being president. And I prayed, and I asked Him in my prayer, if it is your will, God, help me as I'm preparing myself to be the president of the youth. Now, I prepared my discourse. That is the organizational chart. So my plan or my objective for the youth of the congregation. And on the day of our presentation, which was in the same day of the election, we have presented our discourse, for some hours. Then we have taken a break and we passed to the votes. So the same day that we have made our presentation was the same day that the voting was going to be done. So as I presented my organizational chart, I did fairly well. And to my great surprise, among all those that were present, I have had 21 votes. And the brother that was opposited to me, the next leader of the other party, he had just only 3 votes. That is one from himself, because he had voted for himself, one for one of the sisters that he has chosen to be secretary in his committee, and his brother. He had one brother in the congregation, and this brother voted for him also. So altogether, he had 3 votes. So therefore, I win the election and I became the president of the youth. And in a brotherly manner, I spoke to him and I chose him as the vice president of my committee. He is the same one who has asked me for a ride when we have had the accident that I've spoken about earlier. But as I look at it, he had all the advantages comparing to me. I understood that God heard my prayers and He answered to them, because I could not, there is no way I could do it without Him. I could not be the president if God didn't want me to be. So this inspired me of the great, well, he had inspired me of the great things that I have written down in my chart to the benefit of the youth. So this was the reason why I believe I was elected. Now the next one, in my final grade of high school, which was in the years 2018 and 2019, I was elected as, the minister called to plan evangelistic activities for the school where I was. And at that time, I was still the president of the youth. I had started a biblical study, and I was a player of the football team of the congregation. So after the school week on Saturdays, I had to go to Bible school from 7 to 9 a.m. Then after, I would have gone to football training from 9:30 to 12 p.m. And I had to go to review my lessons with my classmates from about 1 to 3 p.m. And I could not really do it because my classmate would have been to the place of meeting since about 9, to 3. But because I was so pressured, I have a very filled timetable, I could not make it on time. So I've decided to meet them at 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Now on Sundays now, I did not finish that part. Yes, so with my classmate, it was 1 to 3 o'clock p.m. And I had rehearsal with the choir, the youth choir, from 3:30 to 5 p.m. Then after, I would have meeting with my committee from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. So I've spent the whole day. On Saturday, I spent my whole day out. On Sundays now, I worship. The worship service would be from 7 to 9:30 a.m. And I will have the youth gathering from 3 to 5 p.m. In the evening service now, it was 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. So I had a very busy timetable. I used to be exhausted, and I could not spend time in my school works and study as I was supposed to do. So I started to worry now about to pass the government exam, because this was my last year at school. So because I was, worried about the fact that I would pass, I was skeptical. So I chose to pray God earnestly to help me. For if I'm working for him, I spend my time for him, I believe that he should be able to take consideration of my situation. So when I was about 1 month from the exam, I started not to sleep at all, studying and preparing myself. And to my great surprise, after the government exam, even though I did not take supplementary course as many of my classmates would have done, I was not close to have the lower grade, because I said to God, well, help me, dear Lord, even though I would be the one who had the lower grade, but still help me to pass the exam. So I realized that I didn't even have the lower grade, but I was amid the best grades. However, I was left behind. I was doubting myself. I was not sure about having success. And this is when I learned that when you take care of God's business, he will take care of yours. Many of the young of the congregation forsook the gathering. They forsook the rehearsals and the evening services, saying that they don't have time. They are preparing themselves for the government exam. Nevertheless, some of them failed, and some did not have good grades as I did. So this was surely God's work. Now, let us move on to the last one. When I finished with high school now, I wanted to come to the Jamaica School of Preaching, to continue with my study of the Bible. However, financially, my parents were not going to be able to help me to come here to Jamaica. Then I was praying to God that, I said to him, God, I want to dedicate my life to study your word and to preach to the world. I would like to travel to Jamaica for further study of the Bible, but my parents do not have the possibility to send me there. So please, Father, if it is your will, if you want me to be a preacher for you, please bless my parents that they may find money to help me. Now, my father has an uncle in the USA. They have not talked for years. And just like that, suddenly he called my father and he was asking about us, about my father's children. And my father explained to him everything. Then he decided that he was going to help me to come here in Jamaica. And along with him, some of my mother's sister who live in America, they also said that they are going to contribute. So if God didn't provide for me from them, there is no way that I could came to Jamaica, and I would not have been studying the Bible here. So this is to me one of the greatest experience that I have had, that I have made with the Almighty God that I am serving. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. That was quite interesting, Brother Solon. Thank you very much. Now we can sum up what Brother Solon is saying, in that God protected him from being severely injured like others who were in bike accidents, and that God answered his prayer to protect him, and also answered his prayer to help him become the president of the youth group in the congregation, and also helped him to do well in the government exams. Now we're going to hear from Brother Israel. Brother Israel, do you want me to share your PowerPoint on the screen?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. Okay, Brother Israel, let me just see if I can get the videos out of the way. All right, can you see Brother Israel?
Yes, sir, we can see it, sir.
Okay.
Oh. All right. Good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
As we are out of time, I will be a little bit quick with my PowerPoint or my homework. As our homework was explain or give some personal experiences with God. Now, my first personal experience with God is that in 2015, the government of Haiti wanted to build an highway in our city, Cap Asia. To achieve this, they must break down a list of house or building. And my father's business was on that list, like house to break down. And my father was not used to staying home at home, but ever since they destroyed his business, he stayed home. I could see pain in his face, and it really saddened me. And I thought it was over for the family because the government break down his business to build an highway. But we gathered together in the family to fast and praise. Some weeks later, God gave him his second business, twice the size of the first, that had been crushed by the government. My second personal experiences with God is that in 2017, my mother was pregnant and the doctor sees two babies in her belly. And that was amazing and a blessing for the family. Now the baby is supposed to come out in the ninth month, but because of the health of my mother, she could stay keeping them anymore. Even the doctor says she will not live because her belly was full of water, which almost seventh month, my mother had to make a cesarean to give birth to the premature babies. Now I have two beautiful little sisters and they are twins. I know it was the work of the Lord for help my mother to come out of this situation. If my mother and the unborn babies could not have life today. And my third experience with God is
I'm coming, Israel. Come. I'm coming.
all right.
You can go on now.
My parents sent me to a school from 2 years old, and God allowed me to pass all my classes without doing one for a second time. I know God had given me the intelligence to have success in high school, and now I'm at university. All the glory belongs to Him. There is some of my friends who don't have this opportunity. God have planned for everyone, and He have a plan for me too. 2019, I was in Haiti, finished high school, laying on my bed, praying to God to provide a way for my life, and God answered my prayer.
I'm coming. I'm coming. Let me just see what I can do here. I'm coming. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. And my fourth experience with God, there is 2 years ago that did not happen. But from the age of 4 years until I was 18 years old, I had a disease called asthma. I was asthmatic, which makes me very badly missing breath and sometimes spending time at hospital laying on bed. When I take those that I'm allergic to, it makes me swelling all over my body, as well as my face. The point is, I was with my parents. I got the help when I'm sick, but now we are separated together. Don't have them to take care of me, but God gave me health so that I can study well. To God be the glory that I'm not sick anymore. And my last experiences with God is that in January 2000, no, that is in November 2019, I was in a plane. It was raining. It was a bad weather. The pilot was having some great difficulty in landing. The plane was shaking. Everybody in the plane was calling the name of God because it was a hard time for them. On its first try, the pilot, on its first try, it failed. It has to go around the runway to land again. It was a bad experience for us, but I know that God was not sleeping. He gave intelligence to the pilot so that he may know how to land well. Those are my experiences with God.
Okay, thank you very much, Israel. I'm glad that your father was able to get a bigger business than the one before, and also that you don't have asthmatic attacks at this time in our country, Jamaica. So thank you for your personal experiences that you have shared with us today. Now, just to wrap up, God permitting, next week, let me just stop the sharing. Next week, we're going to have a test on lesson 5, the experiential argument for the existence of God. You already have the PowerPoint, lesson number 5, experiential argument for the existence of God. So what I want you to do for your homework is to study the lesson in preparation for your test next week, Friday, which is November 5, in Beginner's Apologetics Year 2. Okay, I enjoyed your presentations, and that was very good. I have learned a lot on how God has revealed himself to you in your personal experiences. So at this time, we're going to be taking a 9-minute break. At 10:30, we will begin our Hebrew class.
Brother Israel?
Yes.
Is it?
Yes, sir.
Who, you should have showed us a picture with your twin sisters.
Oh.
Okay, so we will have a break until 10:30. Brother Solin, you know
Yes,
how
sir.
to, when the time comes, you will know what to do.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sure.